Welcome to The Self-Made Theory, the podcast that's all about innovating, overcoming, and prospering. We interview founders, entrepreneurs, innovators, CEOs, and other exciting people about their amazing business journey. Over to your host, Ben Campbell, for this week's episode.
Hey, it's Ben here, and welcome back to the Self-Made Theory podcast. I have to admit, I've been a little tardy on getting you some new episodes. Of course, there's plenty of excuses. COVID, lots of consulting work, the editing team. But really, mostly I've been diverting my attention to some new business ideas that I've been working on. So this episode, I've got something different for you. I've done a role reversal. So instead of me interviewing someone, I'm the one that was interviewed. Landell from PlaceOS asked me last year if I'd come on her podcast, and this is the result. We talk tech, we talk the changing business practices based on what's going on in the world, relationships. It's a pretty diverse conversation. I have to tell you though, I love asking the questions way more than I enjoy answering them. I have to apologise in advance though for the audio quality. It was conducted remotely over the good old internet, so it's a far cry from the quality that we might normally produce on this podcast. Anyway, it's a great conversation. Hope you enjoy.
Campbell is the founder of the Self-Made Theory, a business advisory practice that enables organizations to innovate, overcome, and prosper. He is a business executive and an executive coach, and he's actually a podcaster himself. So he's got a couple of podcasts on the run, which I'll ask him about. He holds an MBA, is a member of the Australian Institute of Company Directors, and is a certified organizational coach. Ben, let's start with your podcast. So I listened to a recent episode of yours, and you had a 17-year-old developer on there who created Apple Watch apps. He accidentally fell into entrepreneurship, and it was just an incredible conversation. Your passion for chatting with him was really palpable as well. Can you tell me a little bit about your podcast and what you're aiming to do with it?
Sure. Thanks for having me on the podcast. It is interesting being on the other end of the questions. I said earlier off mic that I was a little bit nervous being asked the questions versus asking them myself. So I'll do my best to provide your listeners with some good insight. Look, a few years ago, I'd moved back to South Australia from Victoria, and I saw all these amazing business stories that were happening here. And I was really surprised that no one was really telling them. And particularly for people who are in business or are starting a business or are thinking about starting a business, they don't really understand the depth of creating a business, what it takes, what happens when you get into those dark places when things aren't going well. And all of the good stories that we put up about, great entrepreneurs have all had those really difficult times that they've gone through. So I just felt really compelled to tell those stories. And so I created the Self-Made Theory, which is a podcast about entrepreneurs, innovators, great business people, great leaders, and the stories that sit behind their greatness.
And it's really interesting. I have to congratulate you on it because I guess I found you through a mutual contact that we had at PEXIT. And then when I started digging into your podcast, it's a really good. I think I'm drawn to podcasting because I like being able to do a couple of things at once. So when I'm running, I like to listen to podcasts, and it feels like my brain's working at the same time as I'm running it out. And I think we need more Australian podcasts. We need more of the Australian voices as well, and to talk about the little people as well as the big people. And your podcast definitely does that. It's really interesting. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I also wanted to talk to you. I know that you've developed an executive coaching product that is conducted while you're cycling. Now, so this is a break from the old school days of doing business on the golf course. But, I think I say this all the time, but I have a background in exercise and sports science. And so anything to do with wellness and business is exactly where I want to be. And I love ideas that are coming out like this. So can you tell me more about this executive coaching product while cycling?
Sure. So my business is also called the Self-Made Theory. And when we think of sort of founders and entrepreneurs and CEOs, we often consider their a self-made success. But when you really understand what comes behind them, or who supported them, or the mentors that they had, or the coaches that they had, or a confident, who's helped them succeed well beyond what they could have achieved alone. And so when we think about self-made people, it's more a theory rather than a reality. And so that's where my business comes in. I work with executives and business leaders and businesses in general to help them really in a number of key areas. And I think you mentioned it before. I help them innovate, I help them overcome, and I help them prosper. And that's what I do in my business and executive coaching practice. What came out of a conversation I had with a recent new client a few months ago was he was a very successful business guy running a great business, but had got himself into a really tough spot in terms of not building the right organisational structure around him to support him. So that's what we're helping with at the moment. And when we were talking about his goals for this year, one of them was, Ben, I've really let myself go physically and I don't have time for exercise in my life. And so, of course, I've gone away thinking, how can I solve that problem for him? He's invested, 2 hours a fortnight with me, which is probably all the available time that he has to help improve his business and his personal life. And that's when it dawned on me, why can't we use that time and have exercise as part of it? So I started to doing some research behind it, as you do when you're creating a new product. I read some really interesting stuff around the science, and you'll be able to speak to this better than I can. But I remember reading one particular Harvard Business Review article which said that studies indicate that our mental firepower is directly linked to our physical regimen. And they talked about, that exercise brings improved concentration, sharper memory, faster learning, prolonged mental stamina, enhanced creativity, and lower stress. And that's before you even get to the physical benefits. So being a passionate cyclist myself, self-made cycling was born. And so I take my executive coaching out on the road, on the push bike, rather than sitting inside of a boardroom, and we get the benefits of working on their business while we're on the bike. Or as I like to say, we handle their business while we're on the handlebars. How cheesy is that?
I'll go you one better. I love surfing, so I am interested in holding more board meetings.
The interesting part there is, how do you stay side by side and actually hold a conversation while you're you could certainly do it while you're waiting for the waves to come.
Well, yeah, that's the beauty of the lull, out the back, and that beautiful lull where you're waiting and being patient, and then you can take off on party waves together and keep the discussion going. But I really love that idea. I think Adelaide being such a fantastic cycling city would be the perfect place to do that. I think we might be a bit hamstrung here in Sydney.
Well, and I'm a tech guy, right, as you know, and I love tech, and we have the ability to do it remotely using platforms like Zwift, which is an online cycling world where you can basically ride and compete against others who are using that platform, using a smart bike trainer. And so we can be on a conference call talking through their business while we're riding together in this virtual world called Zwift. So not limited to just clients in Adelaide.
Oh, okay. So I've just learned something then. I've got a friend who is a Ironman triathlete who's also has a pretty successful career at Macquarie Bank. I think he's quite high up. So he's had a couple of injuries on the bike, but he now does most of his training on a cycle erg in his garage, watching videos and keeping track. He'll watch a lot of cycling and a lot of triathlete videos, but maybe that's an opportunity to send him over your way. So I'll definitely make the introduction. You touched on it just before, like self-made being a theory, and even deeper than that, I kind of wanted to go a little bit philosophy on you. I don't know if you're familiar with Will Anderson's podcast, but one of the questions he asks as part of his podcast to every guest that he has is, do you have a philosophy?
A personal one or a business one?
It can be either. It can be a life one, it can be a business one, whatever you like.
So I think my general philosophy in life and in business, because I think those two things do go together. I think if you don't turn up as yourself inside of your business, you're not authentic, and people see through that. And so I think there is definitely a crossover between who you are personally and who you are business. If they're exactly the same, that's a problem. If your life is about your work and your business and that's who you are and that's who your identity is, that's a big challenge for you, because at some point you'll get fired or you'll retire or you'll want to do something different and you've lost your identity. I think my general philosophy sits around a couple of key things. One is be authentic. That's really important. Number two is focus on what's important to others, because if you serve others well, you will get the returns for your business. So whether that's turning up for your clients and being authentic for them and serving them well, they will in turn return plenty back to you, both financially and other. So serve others, I think, is a really core tenement for me, and that's done me very, very well over many years. And so you take those two things and put them together, and I think that's probably my core philosophy.
That's a good one. I don't really come down to philosophy so much. Maybe my philosophy is around design your life. But mine just comes down to priorities. And that first priority is health, because without my health, I can't really do anything. Can't be a good mom, can't be a good employee, can't be a good friend, can't be a good, partner and all of that sort of stuff. And then it's family is the second priority. And family is made up of not just my blood relatives that are close to me, and it's also made up of that small group of people who I've just had in my life for so long that they are friends that are elevated. And then I go work. And I think work is definitely part of your identity for a lot of people, especially the businesses that I deal with. But it's not your full identity. That health and that family aspect definitely come before what you can put into work.
Couldn't agree more. And I think the particular piece about making sure that you're well and that you look after yourself is really important. Now, you've got to be very careful not to be selfish with that type of attitude, and some will take that too far. But it's the classic airplane oxygen mask.
Put yours on first
before you can help others. Yeah. And so put your own oxygen mask on, make sure you're well, and choose which of your children you love the most and put theirs on next.
I think for me as well, health is, we've spoken before about this, and I think in our space, the businesses that we're dealing with and the kind of themes that we have to cover as far as business coaching and technology solutions, we have to talk a lot about mental health. So part of that health aspect is not just getting your exercise in every day and keeping fit, but it's also maybe you need that girls' night out dinner because that's part of your mental health. Or maybe you need that time with your partner because that's part of, creating a healthy relationship between you that's without kids. So I try and justify every decision based on those three priorities. So when I say, sorry, babe, I need to go to dinner tonight with the girls, it's part of my mental health, I really mean it.
You touched on something that is really, really important to me and I'm very, very passionate about. And part of the reason why I've started one of the other podcasts that I host. I think the challenge for us in today's busy life is understanding how the changes that we go through in our lives and the dynamics of the relationships we have, how important it is to be intentional around managing those. So when you're a single person, all of your available time, so forget about just work and sort of general family responsibilities, but all your free time that you have available to you is yours to spend how you choose to, right? So your relationship with yourself is the most important thing. When a partner comes along, you now have to divide that available time between two, spending time with your partner and also spending time, with yourself and working on your own relationship. Then kids come along. And so how many kids have you got? Two. Okay. So now in the time that you had to spend just yourself, you now have 5 different relationships that you need to spread that time between. Let me count them. Yourself, partner, 2, with each of your kids, 3 and 4, and your relationship as a family unit. So now that's the 5 relationships. And they're all different and they all have different needs. And what happens to many couples is that logistically you actually have to spend a large part of that time together as a family unit, particularly early on with the kids, because that's just the way it needs to be. But if you neglect self, if you neglect your couple relationship, you're actually setting yourselves up to fail. Because what happens, and we often see this, the average time for a relationship or a marriage is about 12 years. So what happens, that the reason that time frame exists is because by the time the kids get to 8, 9, 10, become a bit more self-sufficient, people start to look around in their relationships and go, who am I? I've forgotten who I am. I haven't spent any time on me. I'm just this mother or this father, this income earner or the whatever you see yourself as at that point. Or they look at their partner and go, who are you? You've drifted apart for the last 10 years. Who's that person sleeping in my bed? And that's what happens. And there's plenty of studies that will show you that. And so you have to be really intentional about it. And getting that balance right is really important. And so, when the kids are little, you're not going to be having date nights every week. You've got to be intentional about making sure you still continue to do that.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. I love going down these rabbit holes when I'm talking to you because I think you and I are from the same school that everything is inextricably linked. Like the things that we're doing inside a business, coaching, in your case, coaching businesses, in my case, providing, technical solutions. It's all about the why. And it comes down to being able to provide something that is for a particular reason. And that always connects back to the next thing. It connects to, more healthy employees. It might be more productivity while you're at work so that you can then go away and have your family time, have your own time, have your exercise time. I think one of the great things that I get to do, at least when I'm talking to businesses, is asking those big picture questions about why are we sitting here in this meeting trying to decide, what platforms and what user experience you're trying to put in place? Because then I can understand really from that holistic point of view. It's not just about a work day for someone. It's about a whole day for someone and a whole employee and a whole person that comes to work at your workplace. And I know that you subscribe to that same school. Now, we are in the age of COVID-19, the coronavirus, and we can't really have any conversation at the moment without talking about that. So one of the questions that I had for you was about, what business questions are you being asked at the moment that you can solve with technology? And I just want to wrap a coronavirus COVID-19 sort of wrapper around that to see what you're being asked at the moment and where, something like this happens and it is what it is, but where are the opportunities in that? How do businesses have to pivot and find those opportunities?
Are you talking for opportunities for service providers or technology companies, or are you talking about opportunities for business in general?
Both, yeah. I mean, obvious ones are things like, okay, with everybody working from home, there is the opportunity for video conferencing to become part of our daily lives. But post-COVID-19, are people going to get used to working from home and therefore we're going to see a lot more of it? And are we going to see a shift in business hours? Do you think we'll see a shift in how people can manage their workday over video conferencing, because it's kind of they're being forced into this lockdown or self-isolation where we might actually grow used to it and understand to trust each other more when we're working and be able to be more efficient. So, working from home, maybe that means that you can start to pick your kids up from daycare or school and, just change the way you work. I'm just interested in your ideas around what opportunities there are.
I think in any crisis period, and I've been in the video industry for time, I think how many years, decades. And so I've been through the 9/11, what happened around that time, the SARS and others as well. And none of them quite as serious as this, obviously. But I think we'll see a pendulum swing. I think we'll see a big swing the other way around, the work from home piece, because people are forced to. But I'm not sure that's what the future's going to look like. I think post-COVID-19, I think we need to continue to understand, and I think people will recognise that we are still social creatures. And being together, face to face, there is nothing better.
Yeah.
There's nothing better. Despite how wonderful technology is and despite how amazing it is and despite how it enables us to do things, sometimes, some cases better, faster, more efficiently, I think there will still be a desire from leaders through to people and workers to be together. And I think we'll see a period of time. What that period of time is, I couldn't tell you, because it'll depend a lot on how COVID rolls out. But I think there'll be a period of time when we pendulum swing the other way and people will recognise that actually, I miss this. I miss that face to face.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we're already seeing that a little bit because I've got a couple of clients who haven't been instructed to work from home yet. So as of, about an hour ago, they were still making in-person meetings for Friday because we have this big design thinking workshop that we had planned to go through. So, and that is such an exercise for in-person. And the whole premise behind the workshop is we're halfway through a project and they've got into very much delivery phase and tried to pull down a lot of the scope into just essential things. And they've lost sight of why they first did this. And it was for the user experience. It was for the employee experience. It was a building that was going to be their part of their smart building journey, but it was going to be their next kind of flagship in their company. So the design workshop, I mean, that's not going to be good over video conferencing. That needs to be in person.
But there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of use cases where using technology can be just as effective as being face-to-face.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that career that you mentioned? So decades inside the video industry. I know that you had some time at iVision before it was bought out by Telstra. Can you give us a little bit of your history?
So if I go way, 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 way back, if I jump in my DeLorean and go back, I originally started as a finance guy. So my backgrounds are, I don't tell this too often to too many people, but that was my original background. So involved in organisations in sort of accounting roles and CFO type roles, and then decided that wasn't the career path because I had a lot more to offer. I feel like I had a lot of broad skills, and so I went off and did an MBA, which was for me sensational. Spent some time in a people and culture role. Was convinced after being harassed for years to move into sales because I'm great at listening and good at working out solutions and good with technology. And that was a pretty amazing step, really. Who's going to take a CFO type person and stick them into a technology sales, consulting-led sales role at CXO level? Nobody. And I was fortunate to be given that opportunity. And from there, I've had sales management roles. I've been head of technology and engineering, where I was responsible for the engineering pre and post and managed services, etc., for a company, and then ended up as a general manager inside of Telstra. So a very broad and diverse career, which I think has been really, really powerful. There's a lot of studies that will tell you that generalists have a very, very big future in the new world.
Yeah, well, you touch on a lot of roles that are, in large organisations, there's sort of 10 to 16 different people inside a group making a decision about the future and how technology affects that. And they are people and culture, they are the CFO, they are the general management type levels. And all of those people are involved, but all of those people are inside you too. So as far as thought leadership and into what's coming next, you're pretty well placed with your skill set.
And that's why I think it works really well in my consulting practice, because I can look at an organisation very broadly across all of the disciplines of an organisation, but then be able to drill down deeply into them. So it brings a bit of a unique skill set, actually, compared to perhaps other consultants or executive coaches that might just come from a technology background or a finance background or a sales background or a GM type background.
What sort of questions are they asking you that can be solved with technology, and what the businesses that you're dealing with, are they embracing smart buildings, smart places? I mean, we just went through a rebrand into PlaceOS, and the research behind why we did that was because I guess our previous brand really just didn't sit well with what we were doing as far as, being the technological spine for user experience. So the new brand, it's related to placemaking and being the operating system for a building and being, that technology spine that drives user experience. And I'm wondering, in your experience, when they're bringing someone like you in to do the business coaching, are they ready for things like that? Are they embracing it? Are they asking you your opinion about what's next? How do we step into this kind of new world? How do we embrace this?
I think the biggest challenge that most clients have had in the technology space is they've been very siloed in their approach. I've got a problem with remote workers. How do I solve that? Oh, well, let's stick a technology platform in place. Let's do a Zoom or a Exip or a WebEx or whatever. And what they're not thinking is they're not thinking holistically across their employee engagement and experience. And I think that's where I'm really interested to see where this takes your organisation, because I think that there is a real opportunity to think way more holistically about how an organisation operates. And then the technology should support that, not the other way around. I think that's the key. And if that's done holistically, then all of the interconnects between physical space, virtual space, I'm in the office, I'm not in the office, how do I navigate the building, how do I interact with the things that are going on inside of the building space, if those can be made holistically, then the user experience and the efficiency, the outputs of that organisation will go up
dramatically. I think your audio just cut out at towards the end there. Yeah, and beyond workplace, I guess we're working in a lot of other verticals as well. One of them being health, and coming back to that COVID-19, issue that is, you just can't avoid right now. One of the solutions that we provided was to New South Wales Health, and we co-built a product called My Virtual Care. So even beyond, you've got this technology backbone, great. So in this case, it's a PEXA backbone, and that does video conferencing, but it's about the integrations and the interfaces that we can offer to promote that patient journey, that clinician journey, that interpreter journey, that parent or friend of the patient journey. So we really expanded it out, and I take your point on the employee experience, and we're really working on just experience in general when it comes to other verticals as well. Are you doing anything interesting in any other vertical besides workplace and business at the moment?
There's a couple I can't talk about, unfortunately. But I think you've hit on really a fundamental basic principle, right? Is the design thinking piece that sits behind. Yeah. Let's forget about the technology. The technology is just an enabler to achieve something. What is it that we're trying to achieve? What experience are we trying to provide? That's the place that you've got to start. And whether that's an experience, as you've pointed out, to a patient or to a carer or to a family member, that's where we've got to focus. We try and shoehorn their experience into the technology we've got, we've lost already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. Okay, well, you and I could talk all day because we have a lot of the same sort of theories, but is there anything that I guess you wanted to throw in at the end, anything that you wanted to plug? I mean, feel free to go through the podcast that you're doing so that our listeners can sort of understand a bit more about what you do and potentially, listen to some of those podcasts that you're running as well.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I assume I'll give you some links and other things that people can go and access them in the show notes. But obviously, the self-made theory, that's the business one. And so, if you're interested in entrepreneurial business journey and how to start and run a business and all the fun that happens alongside that, that's the place to go. And these podcasts are on everywhere, every platform. I had the two other ones have a Christian bent. So one of them is called He Says, She Says, God Says, which is about marriage and relationships. And so that's a new one that I've just started. I co-host that with my wife and a number of other couples. And so if that's of interest to you, that's again can be found on all the different platforms. And another one called Revival on the Air Today, which is the one where I interview people from all around the world on miracles that have happened in it. So some really interesting, very diverse and different stories. I do have a new one coming out. Mm-hmm. That's not a podcast, it's a video series, and it's called Entrepreneurs on E-Scooters. And so it's taking the self-made theory principle around interviewing entrepreneurs about their business, but we do it on e-scooters while we're being filmed around the city. So we've got our pilot episode coming out in the next couple of weeks. It's really fun. It's a really interesting, different way of telling someone's story. So look out for that one. You can Google that, find Entrepreneurs on E-Scooters on Facebook and platforms at the moment. Oh, yeah. That just opens up a whole nother stream of questions. So I'm going to have to park those for another time. I want to say thank you for your time. I know that you're a very busy man, and so I just want to say thank you. And I will link some of those things into the show notes of this podcast.
Thanks so much, Ben.
Have a good work.
You too.
Hey, a big thanks to Landell from PlaceOS for having me on her show. Coming up in our future episodes, we've got an interview with the founder of a gaming development company and another with a serial entrepreneur couple who just cannot help but come up with new ideas. And we discuss how often they've failed. It's one of the most raw interviews that I've conducted. So stay tuned, subscribe so you don't miss out. If you want to find out more about the Self-Made Theory, what we do and how we can help, then head over to our website, theselfmadetheory.com. Until next time, keep innovating, overcoming and prospering.